A white ribbon, soaking wet, found on the backseat of a locked car on a road where it hadn't rained in 11 days. That is where this story begins. Not with a ghost, not with a highway, not with a woman standing in the dark, with a ribbon that had no reason to be wet, and a man who spent 4 years trying to explain it before he finally stopped trying. His name was Marcus Webb, and what happened to him on Route 9 in upstate New York on the night of October 14th, 2018, was not a haunting, it was a debt being repaid. Marcus was 34 years old and running on 3 hours of sleep and gas station coffee when he turned onto Route 9. He had one photograph on his dashboard, not a family photo, not a girlfriend. A picture of his dog, a golden retriever named Hank who had died 2 years earlier. Marcus had never taken it down. He told himself it was because he kept forgetting. He knew that wasn't true. That small detail matters. Remember it. He had spent 2 days at a medical equipment conference in Binghamton. By the time he packed his car, it was past 1 in the morning, and his GPS offered 2 options. The long way, well-lit, familiar, or Route 9, which would cut 40 minutes off the drive. He chose Route 9. Later, he would not be able to explain why. He was tired. He wanted to get home. But he had driven home from Binghamton a dozen times and never once taken Route 9. His hands just turned the wheel that way. The road was empty. No lights, no other cars, just cracked asphalt and the sound of wind moving through trees that grew too close to the shoulder on both sides. At mile marker 40, his radio died. Not static, not interference, pure silence, like a held breath. And then his headlights found her. She was standing exactly at mile marker 41. White dress, dark hair loose around her shoulders, one arm raised, thumb out. She wasn't looking at him. She was staring at the tree line across the road, completely still, like she had been standing there long enough that stillness had become her natural state. Marcus slowed down. He told himself later that he stopped because it was a young woman alone on a dark road, and he was a decent person. But the truth, the thing he admitted only to himself much later, was that something about her made stopping feel less like a choice and more like an instruction. She walked to the back door without hurrying, sat down, closed the door softly behind her. The temperature inside the car dropped immediately, not gradually, immediately. Marcus's next breath came out as visible vapor. He turned the heat to maximum. Nothing changed. He looked in the rearview mirror. She was young, mid-20s, hands folded in her lap, eyes forward. There was something about her face, a quality he couldn't name. Like looking at a photograph of someone rather than the person themselves.
Where are we going?
Where are you headed? Marcus asked. Home, she said. Her voice was completely calm, not whispering, not strained, just calm in the way that deep water is calm. Where's home? What town? What street? She looked up at his reflection in the mirror. Her eyes were dark and still. You'll know when we get there. That's not really how directions work, Marcus said. He was trying to sound light. It didn't land that way. She didn't respond. She looked back out the window. Marcus drove. 2 minutes passed, then 3. He noticed Hank's photograph on the dashboard. Something strange. He felt an intense, sudden urge to take it down. Like it didn't belong there anymore. He ignored the feeling, but it sat in his chest, heavy and specific. Have you been waiting long? He asked. Nothing. Are you okay? Were you in an accident? Silence. What's your name? The temperature dropped again. Another degree. 2. Marcus could feel it in his knuckles on the steering wheel. Then, through the dead radio, a sound. Faint, distant, underwater. A child crying. Marcus reached for the dial. His hand froze before it got there, because he had looked in the rear-view mirror. The backseat was empty. Marcus hit the brakes. The car stopped sideways on the road. He spun around. Nobody there. He checked the door. Locked. Window up. He had heard neither open. He had felt no shift of weight, no movement, no displacement of air. She was simply gone. He sat there and counted. He would tell you he doesn't know why he started counting. But something in his brain needed something to hold on to, and numbers were the only thing that felt solid. He counted to 63 before he moved again. Then he looked at the back seat properly. On the dark upholstery, barely visible, a single white ribbon, the kind used to tie back hair. He reached back and picked it up. It was soaking wet, not damp from humidity, not slightly moist. Soaking, like it had just been pulled from deep water. Marcus stared at it. It hadn't rained on Route 9 in 11 days. He would check this later. He would check everything later. But in that moment, sitting alone on an empty highway with a wet ribbon in his hand, and 63 seconds of counting still echoing in his skull. For the first time in his adult life, Marcus Webb was genuinely, completely afraid. He put the car in drive. He told himself he needed to believe that he had imagined her, that exhaustion and an empty highway and too much gas station coffee had produced a hallucination, that the ribbon was already there when he got in the car, that the wetness was condensation, that there was an explanation. By the time he reached his apartment, he almost believed it. For 3 days, he almost believed it. The fatigue had been worse than usual lately. Marcus noticed it but didn't flag it. He'd been traveling constantly. Trade shows, late nights. He was 34. Not old, but not 22 either. He told himself it was the schedule catching up with him. He had skipped lunch twice in the past week without noticing until evening. His appetite had been off for longer than that, actually. Months, maybe. He hadn't thought to mention it to anyone. On the morning of October 17th, 3 days after Route 9, he sat at his kitchen table with coffee going cold in front of him and typed into his search bar, Route 9, upstate New York woman, white dress. The results were thin. Forum posts, local tourism pages. He tried again. Route 9, mile marker 41 accident. The third search, Millbrook Courier Archive 1987. Route 9 fatality. Took him 40 minutes and 2 dead links to find. But he found it. A digitized scan of a local newspaper. September 3rd, 1987. The headline read, Young woman killed on Route 9. Driver flees scene. Her name was Claire Marsh, 24 years old. She had been babysitting for a family on Caldwell Road, the Henrys, 3 kids under 7, and had stayed late because the youngest wouldn't settle. She was walking home along Route 9 because it was faster and she knew the road. A car struck her at mile marker 41 at approximately 1:15 in the morning. The driver never stopped. Claire died at the scene. She was wearing a white dress. It was her favorite. She wore it every Friday, her friends told police. The photograph was a school portrait, slightly blurred from scanning. Dark hair, young face, and tied in her hair. Marcus closed the laptop very slowly. He sat without moving for a long time. Then he noticed one more detail he had missed on first read. One line near the bottom of the article. Under circumstances of discovery, the victim was found partially submerged in a roadside drainage ditch. It is believed she was struck on the road and came to rest in the water. She was recovered by a passing motorist at approximately 3 a.m. Marcus looked at the ribbon on his kitchen table. Soaking wet. He picked up his phone. He didn't call anyone. He just held it. It rang in his hand. His doctor's office. The diagnosis took 20 minutes to explain and approximately 4 seconds to land. The doctor used words like caught early and strong prognosis and straightforward treatment protocol. Words that were meant to reassure and did not. Marcus heard them from somewhere slightly outside himself, like listening to a conversation through a wall. He remembers the exact texture of the chair he was sitting in. Vinyl, slightly too cold. He remembers the sound of the HVAC system in the ceiling. He remembers thinking about Hank, about how Hank used to put his head in Marcus's lap when something was wrong, as if the dog could sense the weight of a thing before Marcus could name it. He remembers thinking, someone should have told me sooner. The doctor spoke again. Mr. Webb, are you with me? How early? Marcus asked. You said caught early. How early? The doctor paused, chose his words carefully. Had this gone undetected for another 2 to 3 months, we would be having a different conversation. Marcus drove home slowly. No radio, no GPS. Windows down, despite the cold. He pulled into his parking garage, turned off the engine, and sat in the dark for a long time. He thought about a girl named Claire Marsh, who had stayed late babysitting because a 3-year-old wouldn't sleep, who had walked home on a familiar road because it was faster, who had been struck by a car and left in a ditch and found in cold water at 3 in the morning, who had, by every measurable account, no reason to do anything for anyone ever again. He thought about a photograph on his dashboard that he had never taken down. A dog who used to know when something was wrong before Marcus did. He thought about his hands turning the wheel onto Route 9 without deciding to. He thought about 63 seconds of counting on an empty road. And Marcus Webb, a 34-year-old sales rep who described himself as average, whose apartment was average, whose life was average, put his head against the steering wheel and wept in a way he had not wept since the day he lost Hank. Not from fear, not even entirely from grief.
No, listen to me, you have to find him.
From the staggering, specific, inexplicable feeling of being looked after by someone who had every reason not to bother. Marcus completed treatment over 8 months. Full recovery. He took Hank's photograph off the dashboard, not to let go, but to put it somewhere better. On his desk at home, where he could see it properly, he kept the white ribbon in his glove compartment. He never moved it, and he never explained it to anyone who noticed it. If someone asked, he said it belonged to a friend. That was true enough. He went back to Route 9 once, in broad daylight, on a warm afternoon in July. He drove slowly past mile marker 41. He stopped the car and got out, and stood on the shoulder for a moment. There was nothing there, just road and trees and summer light. He didn't need there to be anything. You'll know when we get there, she had said. He had assumed she meant a place, He understood now that she meant a moment. The moment in a doctor's office when the word early is the most important word in the English language. The moment when something caught in time becomes something survived. The moment when a man who described himself as average discovers that someone, something, considered him worth the effort of finding. He had arrived. One question has never left him though. The ribbon was wet because Claire Marsh was found in a drainage ditch on a cold September morning in 1987. But the ditch was dry when Marcus pulled over and checked. He looked. He needed to know. The ditch at mile marker 41 was bone dry in October 2018. So where did the water come from? Marcus has never answered that. He has decided he doesn't need to. Some things are not given to us as puzzles to solve. Some things are given to us simply as proof that we are not as alone on dark roads as we think. Route 9 is still there. Mile marker 41 is still there. And on cold nights, when the road is empty and the radio goes quiet without reason, she may still be there too. Not to frighten you, not to take anything from you, but because 30 years ago, a young woman learned something in the worst possible way. That a road is a terrible place to be left alone, and she has never been able to stop herself from helping. Fade to black.